printing and reporting in Windows Forms application. In order to understand printing and reporting within Microsoft Visual Studio .NET environment, first we have to be familiar with the architecture of printing, itself. So in the next few slides, I talk about the entire steps of the printing environment, and then we're going to go and talk about some additional routine and tasks that it will be helpful to understand, such as GDI information. And why do we want to do that? Because sometimes our printing capabilities are going to be using the screen environment, like print preview on the screen itself. Sometimes you want to manipulate some fonts, like some drawing, or do certain things on the screen rather than on the printer. So you have to be familiar with the GDI. And at the end of this section, we also talk about Crystal Report, which is something new in Visual Studio.NET. If you have been using Visual Basic 6.0, Crystal Report was totally different application. You had to just go and create your own Crystal Report, and then by installing Crystal Report, Visual Studio would automatically got a new ActiveX control. So all you had to do, add that ActiveX control into your Visual Basic 6.0 forms and start using it. This is exactly the same story, but Microsoft already implemented and integrated the Crystal Report engine, part of the Visual Studio.NET. So you don't have to really buy Crystal Report. It's already there. So the engine is already there. As a matter of fact, Crystal Report doesn't belong to Microsoft. Microsoft just got the right from Seagate Corporation. And I don't know, some news say that Microsoft bought it, but who cares? You just want to use it. So printing from a Windows Form application. First, we have to understand how printing works, and then, of course, we're going to go and explain print document object. Of course, the document object, like any other object, consists of many different events and many different properties and methods. So print page event and print page event arguments are extremely important because you want to do some manipulation on it, perhaps. Let's say that you might have 6 documents, on your application, but the way that you want to print it based on a landscape or portrait, you got to, change the page numbers. So you have to do manipulation on it. So somehow you have to get notified in regard to what page has been printed, how many pages of documents are still waiting, and so forth. So printing is a little bit tricky, the way that you want to manipulate it. How to enable printing in Windows Form application also will be discussed, and at the end we have a practice. First section, we have to understand the printing environment, like how printing really works. The first thing that we do, basically let me go ahead and make sure that I have a printer. Let's go through control panel, and actually I just bypassed it. Let's just go through printer object, faxes and printers, actually right here. I do have one printer, HP LaserJet. I just wanted to make sure I have that for this example. Let's go to Notepad now. Sorry. Let's go to Notepad or WordPad, doesn't matter. And I'm typing in a document, whatever it is, and then the first thing I do, I select File and say Print. Guess what happened? As soon as I click Print, the print dialog box appeared. And if you pay attention, the print dialog box communicates with the printer environment and all available print drivers. So I don't care how many printers are there. Automatically the print dialog box and print objects in Microsoft, they automatically detect all available print drivers. Not to mention that depends on the printer itself, you might get one or more properties. If I perhaps go through all this information on the printer itself, you see that talks about number of copies, how many copies do I want, or whether or not you want to have collate. And then of course you want to have all pages or few pages. The first thing you have to understand here that you can literally go and change this environment. You can actually create your own custom print property pages. You could customize that using the print document object. And of course you could do lots of other things, like for example, by selecting a specific printer, you could prompt the user for additional information or so. So this section can be customized, and then by the time I click print, you see it prepares the document and it starts printing the information and sending it to that printer for me. So now, by the time we want to deal with the printing in, in Visual Studio.NET, the print document object basically enables printing within our application. So that's the first thing that we have to understand. So this is a central object within Visual Studio.NET. So this print document object identifies how the printing is going to happen. Like what printer you want to choose, do you want to have how many pages, the same environment that I showed you, that screen, that print properties page. And then of course it starts printing the page. So the print page event occurs. And of course you are creating the content that is supposed to be printed, because not necessarily the pages that you see on the screen are going to be represented the same way on your printer, because sometimes depends on the font, depends on the size of the paper, this depends on the landscaping on it. You might actually have more than one page on the print or paper size, or have 2 pages on one page on the printer itself. So this section requires to have a constructor for the content, and of course it does support multi-page documents at the same time. So again, how pages are supposed to be printed are going to be done by the print page event. After you're done for the page event, obviously for each page you need to know what's going on, like the page setting. Okay, I'm supposed to print like 1,000 pages. On each page, what is my page setting? What is my characteristic on that page? What's the margin? What do I do about graphics perhaps? Or do we have more pages yet to come? Is that the last page? Because usually the last page has like a footer or end of page report. So you have to go through this loop and understand how many do you need to, how many pages do you need to print. What about user support? Like perhaps if you want to go and show options, like print preview dialog box, that you can show it within the, monitor. Have the user make sure that this is what they want without wasting the paper and print it. Or page setup dialog box or print dialog box. As I mentioned, these could come at the beginning of the form or later on. You could actually manipulate it. So, but how do I actually print really? Just using the print method of the print document object really does the printing. So all these, steps can be done programmatically. So let's first talk about the print document object. The print document object provides the ability to print a document and provides properties that describe what to print. The print document object properties would be as follows. Like default page setting. If you want to just manipulate a page setting as you see like this, I can go to the page setup on the WordPad menu as you see in here on my screen. If I click on a page setup, all the information that you see in here can be basically manipulated using default page setting. So you can do anything you do graphically programmatically. Of course, the document name and print controller can be set, can be changed, but you don't change those obviously programmatically. You're just getting whatever the document name is, the information of the file. And then of course printer settings. Printer settings talks about what printer you want to choose. That would be clicking on this printer. You see, anything I talk about right now, they're available in here. This is a printer setting on the, page setting on the printer itself. And I can go to the properties. This is a printer setting as far as the layout, as far as the paper quality, and so forth. Again, they are not properties, they are settings. Like how do you want to set that printer? Not necessarily you want to change the properties of the printer. That's totally different. There's another object for that. You're only dealing with a document that is supposed to be printed. So anything has something to do with the document relationship and the printer, we have the capability to manipulate it using the print document object. And then of course print documents event. By the time you start printing, you got begin print. At the end you have end print. While you're printing would be print page on each page. And then of course you could query page setting. You want to find out what did you set. In other words, the query page setting, what it does, reads the default page setting. Why? Because you want to programmatically find out where you are, what page are you printing, Perhaps you have like a asynchronous way of manipulating your print jobs. At the middle of printing, you want to click on a cancel button perhaps. Or you want to just show a message box, oh, okay, you have like 1,000 pages, you are in page 500. Would you like to resume? Would you like to cancel? Programmatically, you could do lots of different things. And then, of course, print document. you have two methods. Either you want to print or you want to just get rid of it. You want to cancel it or dispose it, in other words. So the check mark indicates the most commonly used properties, event, and methods of the print document object. Let's talk about now print page event and page event arguments. The print page event includes two parameters, an object representing the sender and a print page events argument object. As you see, the box is showing a sub information for the print page argument. So the print page requires to have a sender or an object that is supposed to be printed and a bunch of arguments, as you see listed here in your right hand side. The print page event argument that provides component required to construct the page of the print document and the page setting graphics and obviously number of pages. And then of course the print page itself contains the programmatic logic that constructs the context of the print document itself, and ensures that the entire print document is printed. So you have, consider that you have two different objects that manipulate the entire printing, and another object manipulates one page at a time. So you have to understand how many pages you want to print, and for each page how you want to print it. Very, very straightforward. Now, how to enable printing in a Windows form? Well, obviously, the center of attention here is print document object. Print document object specifies print settings, like default page setting perhaps. Also, you have to add the printing logic to the application by calling the print page event, or waiting for the print page event that it comes by the time you run the print method, really. So by calling the print method, you actually prepare the information and then start printing, and the print page event occurs. So in the print page event, we use the print page event arguments in order to understand how to deal with the graphics, whether or not there are more pages to be printed, and how to be printed by reading the page settings. And of course, we could understand the margins, the page height and width by reading the information of the page setting itself. Also, we can establish fonts, brushes that we are using by the time we want to print it, regions on the page, as I mentioned, like margins, and constructing the output by positioning the text and graphics by using the methods. Not to mention that adding the printing logic to the print page, it might, involve launching some documents, like for example, from what page to page, or do you want to print just a selection, and so forth. Let's take a look at this practice for a second. If I go ahead and launch a specific example here, I'm just going to go ahead and open up a project under demo code, or I'm sorry, under practices on 2565. We do have a chapter 6, and the first practice talks about the print process. I'm not just going to do the practice because you're going to do it, but I'm just showing the solution to you because of time. I'll give you some time to do all this, of course, but let's take a look at the solution here. We have a form, obviously, and part of the form, we're going to enable the print capabilities. So, as you see here, I ask how many pages do you want to print, and then we have a button that says print document 1 can provide info about installed printers, and then print document 1 can provide default page setting info. Pay attention here. We do have a specific control called print document. Print document is nothing but just a control. This is an object that you can drag it into your application or into your form. Microsoft has already prepared all this information. You don't have to really, do any special thing. On the print document itself, which is an object, all you have to specify, just specify a name. And now, let's take a look at the code behind the scene. There is a method called showPrinterInfo. ShowPrinterInfo, basically what it does, shows all available printers installed on your machine. Automatically does it for you. One single function. Another example here, it says default printer. You see there is another function, show page settings. So you got show printer info, and then you got show page settings. These two functions come from this object, really. That's all it takes. and automatically Microsoft does the rest. As far as the print preview, as you see, all you have to say show print preview. So let's take a look at all these methods that we call, and let's see how do we implemented it. So once again, here the show printer info. Show printer info is just a sub procedure that we are going to develop in this practice. Let's see how do we do it. We are defining some variables in here, and of course using the print document object that I added into my form, I call the printer settings collection. And part of printer settings collection, there is a collection that says installed printers. And then finally I find out how many installed printers do I have on this box. So all I'm doing, I'm actually populating the number into the print count. In other words, I just want to know how many printers are available. So how do we get that? From print documents, printer settings, installed printers count. That shows you how many printers you have installed on your machine. And then you go through a loop. You go through a loop for each available printer installed on your box. What are we doing? We are going to show the information in here. As you see, the printer document, printer setting, and installed printers, and we find out the specific printer name. As you see, there is an option. We say is default printer. You know how do we know that? By simply coming down in here. If you have more than one printer, that printer has a checkbox close to it, right? If I have more than one printer, obviously, I check for the default printer because I like to use that. So what I'm trying to do, since there is no way that I can find out which printer is the default, first I have to understand how many printers I have and go through a loop and check their property. If is default printer is equal to true, then I can actually have that to be my printer. And of course, the current printer would be the default printer of the installed printers, obviously, because we found the number. As you see, as soon as I find that information, I just, keep the local printer number value. And obviously on the print document one printer setting printer name, I set my printer name for this document to be the current printer. In other words, I let my document to use the default printer. That's what I'm setting it right here. And then I make sure the printer is valid by calling is valid. In other words, sometimes the printer is not valid. Many reasons causes it, like network communication problem. Like you have a print server somewhere and you're not connected to it, or security is not good, or you have already added the printer but printer physically is not there anymore. So you want to make sure the validity. What does the validity do? Really goes and check the network, try to communicate with that printer, see if it works or not, and so forth. Obviously, print to a file gives you the capability to print to a file. And of course, printer information object is just get the information that you want, and you can basically concatenate few texts in here and see what kind of information you can show in a message box or in a form. In this scenario, printer information has the information about your default printer, and you can simply go ahead and say, okay, what do I have? I have this particular printer. Also, you have the show page setting. As you see, you can check to see if this page setting is landscape. You show the page orientation variable to be landscape or portrait. And then of course you could set the top margin, bottom margin, left and right margin. You could also take a look at the page settings. As you see, you're concatenating it and showing it in a message box. So let's go launch this application for a second and see how it works. As soon as the form comes up, I'm just going to go and test the first two buttons. As you see, if I click on print document can provide info about installed printers, you realize that it says HP LaserJet 5000. That's the printer that I've installed. It is true, it's valid, it's a default printer, and print to file is false because I just want to print. If you want to set the print to false to be true, you have to actually go back here to the printer and faxes and go to the of this printer. And as you realize, many of those functionalities are available in here. So as far as like advanced information, you could actually set some of these values print directly to information and so forth. As far as like security, driver settings and so forth, all these objects that you see can be actually accessed programmatically. This is the printing preferences, and this is a section for orientation, and how would you like to go about and setting these options here for yourself. So anything that you see you can set here graphically can be accessed programmatically. Also, this is the page setting. The page setting literally shows that, you know, what's the margin and so forth. That goes back to the page setting itself. And then of course the print preview. The print preview just shows how many printer do I have. As you see, this is page 1, text will go here. That means if you have any information, it will be shown here. So let's take a look at the code behind the scene for the print preview. If I have, before I do that, if I have 2 pages, then it shows 2 pages in here. Obviously we are just mimicking the environment, but in reality it just goes and basically shows your document really. So now let's go and take a look at the print preview object, which shows the print preview, and as you see, we have it in here. So the total page would be coming from that spin box. We could actually set that up, and obviously here we could specify the location for the top and left margin for our page. Now here on the form preview, we are creating a brand new form, and then of course we are setting the print document in here, start page, columns and so forth. And here, as you see the print preview, we set the text, we set the style for it, we add some controls to it, and we show the dialog, and automatically the print preview dialog shows the rest. So we don't have to be worried about calling any additional information. As you see, the print preview control also, it's just talking about a specific object that shows the print preview dialog box for you, which was that the screen that I showed you. That practice takes a few minutes that I give you some time to do it later, but let's move on and talk about print preview dialog control. In order to work with the print preview dialog control, you have to use the print preview dialog control into your form in order to display it. So first, what you have to do, either you have to drag it and drop it and just call it, or create an instance of it and set the document property of the print document object into it. Now, as you see, this is a code example. As you see, we say print dialog as print preview dialog. You create a new instance of it, and as you see here, there is a property called document. All you have to do, pass the print document object into the document property of your print preview, and then specify how many pages, what is the start page, and say show dialog. Literally, these are the codes that you need in order to show the print preview dialog box. Obviously, if there's a practice for that, I'll let you do it later on. And then how to use the page setup dialog. Before you want to print, perhaps you want to go and set the page. Again, use a page setup dialog. You could set the page detail in a Windows form. You could set the borders, margin adjustment, header, footer, portrait, and landscape. And this is an example of it. Pay attention to this code example. All you're doing, you're actually creating a new instance of a page setup dialog. And then the stored page settings, if it's nothing, then we create a new page setting. Obviously, that shows if you already have a page setting, you use it. Otherwise, you just create a brand new one. And then, of course, you're showing it. And then the rest of the information can be set via the graphics. There's another practice for that. And finally, the print dialog. After you're done with the page setting, after you found out about your printer itself and set your document, now it's time to print. So the print dialog specifies the printer related settings, like specify printer and print job properties, as well as the collate settings and range. Again, this is another example on the code example here that I give you some time to do those practices. But let's take a look at this example here. And as you see, all we're doing, print dialog, the document has to be set to the document object that you have. And then obviously, depends on the dialog result, you allow yourself to print or not. Because as soon as you click on a print, if you click cancel, you shouldn't print, obviously. So the print result is important. Now the last section talks about GDI Plus and constructing the print document content by using GDI Plus. First, we have to understand what is GDI plus and why do we need graphical objects. Because sometimes you want to, manipulate your print object. Perhaps you want to put a watermark, or you want to put your own logo on it at the same time, or you want to just put for demonstration and say this is like a confidential, those things, some effects, in other words. So GDI Plus is the new graphic device interface, enables application to generate graphics and formatted text for the video display and the printer itself. But obviously we are not going to focus on the video display just yet. We have another chapter we talk about GDI Plus again, but here we are focusing on the printer itself. It allows the application and developers in order to go ahead and directly write into the printer or directly write into the video adapter card. You have three parts, part of GDI Plus. You have a 2D vector graphics using the DirectX technology. You can have 3D vector graphics, of course, and then you have text and images. The graphics object is available, part of .NET. It provides the drawing surface on which content is placed, provides methods for drawing text and graphics at the specified location, and also provides various tools for modifying its context. As you see, all you need to do, declare a variable of the graphics, and then as you see, there are a variety of different methods that you can use, such as draw a line, fill rectangle, draw a string, and so forth. You could actually do things that you don't really do it within the text editor, You could basically draw anything you want on the printer. You could draw a shape and so forth. Again, remember that creating a pen, creating a brush, and text and everything comes from the graphics, which we're going to talk about later on in other chapters. But here, how to create a pen, brush, and font, basically got introduced. But again, we're going to get into the detail of it later on in other chapters. So the pen itself is required to draw a line and outline shape. In order to create a new pen, all you have to say, create a new pen and specify the color for that pen. And then, of course, for the brush, is required to draw field shapes. Again, you have to specify the brush, the style for it. There are a variety of different brushes, solid brush, and many more brushes that are available. And of course, fonts is required to draw the text of a single size or style. You can create a new font by just specifying the name of the font, the size, and the style for it. So after you created those, pen, brushes, and fonts, you can simply come in here and use the graphics object and call the specific method. Like you want to draw a string, obviously you have to call it, draw a string, and then pass your text that could come from a text box, pass your font to it, your brush to it, and the size for it, location for it. And of course you could specify the measure on your text, because it's not like a character that you have to type in, it's literally a drawing. You're literally drawing a text. So then you can play with it. You can, change the size for it. Why do we want to do that? Depends on the page size, depends on the page margin. You have to play with the text. You have to actually, work with the environment somehow based on a landscape or portrait. You have to show the text differently. You have to draw it differently. So here we are setting the width and height of our text. This is another example of how to generate print contents by using a stream reader. A stream reader is good in order to read lines of information from a standard text file or an XML file. So as you see, print preview, there's a button, print preview, obviously. As soon as I click on it, on the stream to print, we are creating a new stream reader. We have talked about this in previous chapter, obviously. And a stream reader, what it does, it actually goes and basically opens up this specific file, printme.txt. And then you show the print preview control, and then obviously this print preview control could be a procedure that goes and starts reading that file and putting it as a document and giving it to the print preview document itself, and start working with it. So if you want to take a look at other informations in here which is not shown in this slide, look at page 40 on module 6. As you see, for each line that you're reading from the file on page 40, you're going through a loop while current line less than lines per page. So somehow you have to understand how many lines do you have per document. For each line, what do? We are reading the information using the stream line, right? A stream reader, in other words, which is this object right here, a stream to print. There is a specific method called readLine, And then basically you have to just go ahead, read the line, and perhaps use it in a string, draw a string, method. Read the information since it's a text, pass it as a parameter. And then start printing that information. Then you can check to see if you have more pages or not. You know what I mean? And then go through the same loop again. There's a demonstration I'd like to show you. If I go back here to visualstudio.net and open up another project, part of the demonstration, if I go to chapter 6, actually there's another location called sample folders, and I do have printing from 2565 class. And if I open this up, let's pay attention to this class in here. Printing form 2565. This is the class itself. As you see, this class, it inherits from system drawing printing print document. What we are doing, we are setting some fonts, as you see, creating some fonts in here, variety of different types and styles. You see that? Basically, we are using sans serif, but using different sizes. And of course, we are setting some other variables for height and the margin information. Basically, we are setting some of these information in here. And also, we do have the print page event. There are a couple of methods that we call. One is printing empty form and printing contents form. On the empty form, we are actually calling this specific information in here. And as you see, we are basically setting the brushes, and we are showing Northwind Traders and showing the address. And then we show the form like to address from. Basically, we are just making a nice form, empty form. And then the other one is the content form, which actually goes and prints the information in front of those rows. Let's just take a look at this information. Let's go ahead and build the solution. And then now, in order to go and test this, I'd like to go ahead and just add a project into this. And I like to go and expense report application, bring that up. Actually, sorry, let's go to purchase order. Purchase order application, let me see if I have it in here. I have to make sure that I can connect correctly. Let's go back to the properties in here. Okay, this is my London, and of course my data adapter. It requires to have a connection and everything. Let's see. Let me go with the SQL connection and make sure that I'm actually selecting the right connection in here. Let's go with London Mock, use Windows Integrated. And of course the database was not set, that's the problem. If I go to Northwind database, test the connection, now it should be okay. Okay, if I run it again, I shouldn't get any error. Okay, just telling me there's a problem. You see, even their lab unfortunately doesn't have like a try catch block. Let me go ahead and put a try catch block, see what's going on. Don't ever do what they show you. Okay, let's see what's up. Okay, it says, okay, invalid object name is stored. You know what? I think I'm connecting to a wrong database. So let's go back in here on the connection object. Let's go to a new connection. It is? Okay, thanks. Oh, isn't it nice now? I can't even access my servers. Okay. This machine has been acting funny. Yours is okay, right? Good. Remember yesterday I had that problem and... Okay. It's not even showing all available databases. You see, it says SQL does not exist or access denied. What the heck? Let's see. Okay, London /mock. And if I go with this and choose this, oh, there we go. Pubs database. Okay.